Welcome back, subscribers. This is Johnny Hopper, and a lot went down at this last Supercross, the Vegas finale. It was a sold-out stadium, which was cool to see. There hasn't been a lot of sold-out stadiums throughout the 17-race series, but it was cool. Vegas, you could almost bet money that that's going to happen. But anyway, I'm going to go over the 250s and the 450s, and naturally, I'm just going to start with the 250s. We had 4 people battling between 8 and 9 points of each other for a championship. So we're going to have a new champion in either the 250 East or 250 West that have never been champion before. So getting down to qualifying times coming from the West. And personally, I think the West series had faster riders than East. But if you guys don't agree, obviously let me know. Banter in the comments below. But AC was the fastest qualifier on the West with a 59.5. And Dylan Fernandez was second with a 59.6. And those are the two guys that are battling. Fernandez, he is 8 points behind AC. So he's got to win and AC's got to finish 5th or worse for him to clinch the championship. For the East Coast, Mitchell Oldenburg was actually the fastest with a 59.1. So he was a couple cents faster than anybody on the West Coast in time qualifying. And then the guy that's in the lead for the championship, Sexton, was a 59.3. So he was still faster than the West Coast guys. Justin Cooper was a minute. So he was a little bit slower there. And Justin Cooper is 9 points behind Sexton. So he's got to finish 5th to tie or worse. And if it comes down to a tie, well, they're going to see who's won races and so on and so forth. In that case, I think Sexton would still have gotten the championship because he won East Rutherford. So there was only 25 riders in the East Coast and 30 riders in the West Coast trying to qualify. And because this is the East-West shootout, they only take 20 from each section to make into the night show, to make that 40 rider into the night show, then break it up, 9 riders per heat, and then the 4 for the LCQ. So I had a feeling the 250 class was going to be spectacular. You've got these young kids that are all hyped up on, drinking their own Kool-Aid or their sponsorship, Red Bull, Monster Energy, Gas Monkey Energy, whatever it may be. They're wanting to win a championship, and we were going to have 4 guys potentially win their first ever championship. So we knew something was going to go down. And backing up just a little bit, when it comes to the terrain in the racetrack, because Vegas is very hot and dry, they end up watering the dirt quite a bit for press day and for time qualifying. So it gets these real deep ruts in between the sections. So we did see some riders setting up between step on, step off, triple, get a little sketched out, because you're basically, as soon as you land, you're falling right into a rut for the next jump. So if you're a little bit off balance, well, it's going to slow your speed down. The bike might kick a little bit differently. Could be very sketchy. So that makes it difficult. Not to mention, they don't do a whole lot of watering after the fact. So these ruts end up getting real dry and hard packed, so they don't move. So if you do make a mistake, you can't go blow through it. It's this cement or so rut. And so they get these little itty bitty choppy holes as well too, because the dirt is already dry and hard. So it almost like chips out like potholes per se. You definitely saw that around the big corner where they were doing like 60 miles an hour outside of the stadium. And it was cool to see the track actually going backwards. For the last couple of years, they've gone the other direction. So that was cool to see as well. But getting into the 250s, we knew AC had to keep his cool and think about the championship. And same thing with Sexton. Justin Cooper and Dylan Fernandez are the guys on the offensive. They've got nothing to lose but a championship to win. And then you've got AC and Sexton, and these guys need to be a little bit on the defensive. Like I said, they've got to pretty much finish 4th or better with their competitor winning. And definitely having different guys from both East and West in there makes things a little bit more difficult as well, as far as to try to know, hey, I'm 3 points ahead. But then again, that's why you have your mechanics. They pretty much do all the math for you. You look at the pit board and they'll show you. So AC definitely had to just take things easy. And Sexton, I think he did a really good race for just taking it easy, hanging out in 4th, 5th place, just making sure that Justin Cooper's behind him. He doesn't have to win. You know, all he has to do is beat that guy. And he ended up crossing the finish line in 4th. So I have to give it up to Sexton. He did a very mature strategy when it came to just winning the championship. The championship was important. AC, however, I want to know if you guys thought he just went out there guns blazing, wanted to get up to 2nd and start catching Fernandez and try to win the race, because he was sitting in 4th where he had 1 point where he didn't have to do anything. He just had to stay right there. And then he ends up getting into 3rd, and he just puts his head down and he makes a small mistake, jumps off, almost hits a tough block, and then gets kicked sideways and just smacks down and ruins his motorcycle, and he's out for the count, at least for the championship. If you're pro circuit, you've got to be sort of pissed. I mean, if they took some shots of Mitch Payton, he did not look impressed. The last couple weeks, both of his riders lost both the championships, with Austin Forkner with basically having a race lead on everybody before he tore his meniscus and his ACL, and then AC losing it in Vegas. This is just detrimental for those guys, and they're pretty much the team to beat. And then Martin Davalos doesn't look like he's going to be having a ride in the 450s anytime soon, because, you know, he just hasn't been doing that well in the 250 class. Granted, he's a still awesome rider. He's been top 5, but for that level of a team, they're looking for guys that are going to finish on the podium every weekend. And just speaking of contracts coming up, looks like Ken Roczen signed another 3-year deal with Honda. I'm sure this was a multi-million-dollar deal. I haven't looked up much information on it, but definitely Honda wants to stay with Roczen. And then we also saw Malcolm Stewart signing a 1-year deal with Smart Top Honda as well. So he's finally got a solid ride going, and he was riding really well this season. I thought he might actually win a race. I did like to see AC not just completely throw a fit and actually finish the race, get as many points as possible, because there's still a considerable bonus for finishing 2nd in the championship. So he did a good job for at least finishing, and I know that guy is probably just it probably just breaks his heart that he lost the championship right there.
Unfortunate. Just felt fine out there riding, and just came through that section and got just a little bit close to the tough block there and crashed, and I honestly would have been fine, I think, but I got up and the bike was super mangled. It's pretty much unrideable, so it's unfortunate, man. Yeah, that's really all I have to say. Obviously, a lot of guys, including myself, we every day this is what we do it for, to be a champion, and unfortunately, I made a mistake that cost me the chance to be a champion. I've been in this situation before, and I've felt what the bottom feels like, and I think I have some perspective. I think the sun's going to come out tomorrow. It's unfortunate, obviously. It feels, we put everything into this, and you put your self-worth into it, you put everything into it, and I feel like I failed. I feel like a failure right now, but tomorrow I'm going to wake up. I'm going to,
Should he have backed it down a little bit? Well, you could say yes, but at the time when you're in the moment, who knows what's going to happen. It could have gone either way. But since it didn't go his way, I'm sure he's thinking he should have just stayed in 4th and just sort of rode around. I did like Dylan Fernandez's interview, just basically saying AC choked.
I asked my mechanic to just tell me what AC does, and when he showed me P4, and when I saw P10, P20, I was like, no, it's not possible. And I just tried to stay focused, but the emotion was difficult to control, and it's unbelievable. Wow.
I thought that was very interesting. And Sexton, he rode like a veteran. At 19 years old, the championship was it. We'll see how these guys do in the outdoors. So moving on to the 450s. So there was 49 riders trying to qualify. They take the top 40, and local boy Todd Bannister from Colorado, he finished 45th, so unfortunately he wasn't able to race the night show. And then we had Tomac, who was basically on the offensive, the fastest Supercross rider, arguably, with the fastest qualifying time with a 58.2. We saw the 250s, relatively 59.1 to 59.5, the top guys. Ken Roxon was third, and then Cooper Webb was typically right around that fifth. And Osborne was fourth with a 59.1. So Eli Tomac was on fire. He has been the last couple races, which makes it wonder, why can't this guy do this every race? Why can't he just get out front, smoke everybody like he usually does? But it seems like he ends up beating himself. And I know my last video I pissed off a bunch of people by calling him Choke Mac. And if he didn't put himself on the ground at times, well, I wouldn't have any evidence to try to call him Choke Mac. Anyway, you either love him or you hate him. He's pretty much the fastest guy in Supercross right now. I did like to see Osborne win his very first heat. So that was awesome for Zach Osborne. He is one person I'm looking out for in the Outdoor Nationals. I personally think that this guy's going to be on the podium, and he might even win a couple motos. I don't think he's going to be champ, but I think he's going to be right up there. He's going to have a couple breakout races for sure. And we saw Tomac in his heat race almost wad, just getting a little bit sideways because of some of those ruts. And then we also saw him in the whoops get a little bit squirrely because those whoops were just huge. And when they get cupped out and then hard pack with those hard holes in them, they just get difficult to navigate. Decelerating, well, that bike is going to act differently, you know, as opposed to when you're on the gas. If you're sideways and you're on the gas, well, you're going to have inertia and force pushing you forward, so that bike's going to want to straighten back out. But when you're letting off and it's doing this, well, then it can go boom, boom, and then you end up on your head, which isn't any good. And as far as the main event was fairly boring, I guess, in my opinion. Tomac, fastest guy, gets out front. Marvin gets right there. And then Webb, he's got to finish 20th or better. And he was doing exactly what he needed to do. Just let Tomac go. You're staying in third. Tomac didn't have his buddy Savachi to try to pull over on him to give him $1 million. He didn't have any help. Josh Grant, you know, wasn't on factory Kawasaki, so he couldn't push Dungey off the track or anything. And we didn't see Tomac slow down to try to make it a tighter race. Perhaps maybe he knew that, man, you know, he's got to finish 20th or worse, so the chances of that happening aren't realistic unless a motor blows up or something. So I'm just going to ride my own race and win. And Tomac, in my opinion, should have won the championship. He was the fastest guy. The only reason why he didn't was he beat himself. Where Webb, at 23 years old, super consistent, has a very veteran-type mindset like Reed or Justin Brayton. I personally think this guy is got his best years to come.
Yeah, it was crazy. You know, obviously it's been a great year, and you know, it's incredible to come this way. Obviously, from the first win in round 3 to round 17 at Vegas, you know, it's incredible. Really, really awesome feeling, and still in shock. Can't believe it, but man, what a year for sure.
And then guys like Marvin, who are 29, do you think maybe his best years are behind him when he was racing hard with Dungey? Or do you think he might actually end up winning a championship? So outdoors, I think he's going to do well, but is he on the downhill side of his career? Unfortunately, I think he is. At least the start of the downhill side of his career, where Webb, I think, is going to start carrying the main flag for KTM. So I want to know what you guys think. As far as I want to go back to a little bit on the track. I don't like these smaller lips on these 90-degree corners, and on the outside there's the larger lips. I personally just think it makes it a freight train where everybody is just going to cut to the inside and not go outside, because you're going to end up being popped up in the air, and that's going to lose time, because the longer you're in the air, the less you're on the ground with that motor pushing you forward. And hence why we scrub. We try to stay low to the ground. So I personally would have liked to see the track a little bit different. I don't like to see those at all. I think they need to take them out. Or if they're going to do these 90-degree options, they need to have the outside have the smaller lip to them and the inside have the larger lip. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. And then as far as the podiums and the trophies go, I thought the 100% goggles were the coolest thing there. They had the gold plate on them. I thought that was a really cool trophy for these guys. And these darn little plastic #1 plates, I think are kind of silly. They need to bring out the big giant trophy. We know that these guys get this huge championship trophy. Why not give it to them when you're on national TV so you can see they're on national TV, this huge trophy? I mean, there's the Stanley Cup. In UFC, they give the big belts. In WWE, they give these big fancy belts. Why in motocross and supercross, they give you this little plastic #1? Yeah, there's a lot of sentimental value behind it, but it doesn't look very bling. I mean, I'd like to see something expensive that's like, ooh, wow. But I don't know. That's just my preference. Let me know what you guys think. And who do you guys think is going to win the outdoors? Do you think it's going to be Webb? Do you think it's going to be Tomac? Do you think it's going to be Marvin? Or is it going to be Osborne or Bogle or somebody else, that Baggett even? You know, I think Baggett might actually win a couple races as well. My pick, Tomac's going to be hard to beat. I think it's going to be the top 3 that we saw in Supercross. I think it's going to be Marvin, Webb, and Tomac. I think those are going to be the main guys consistently on a weekend basis to be up front. As always, thank you for tuning in. Click subscribe if you like my videos. Hit the like button if you like my videos. I mean, if you like me in general, just follow me on Instagram. If you don't do either of them. But until next time, this is Johnny Hopper signing off.